So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from wherever in the world you are joining us from, and welcome to what we hope is the first of a new line of intelligence briefings where we bring you guests who are the tops in their field to share industry insight into current world events as it relates to terrorism, threat assessment, cybersecurity, and many other security industry challenges. My name is Sean Neal, and I'm coming to you today from Dallas, Texas, USA. I currently work as a regional security manager for the Chameleon Group, which is based out of Los Angeles. I welcome you here today to share what I know will be an informative session that will give you more insight into what many consider to be a problem that has since passed. When we at Chameleon first started talking about putting together this intelligence briefing, Operation Rising Lion was still in its infancy stages. Israel had just asserted air dominance over Tehran, taking out military installations and missile launch sites, largely eliminating any of Iran's offensive capabilities. The United States had not entered the fray yet, and we really had no idea what form of a protracted military operation was going to look like. Our Chameleon team assembled to talk about how we could best get unbiased and actionable information out to our security industry partners that would be able to help them harden their own infrastructure and take proactive steps to mitigate or direct indirect threats from the Iranian regime. Fast forward less than 2 weeks, and the Iranian war machine was largely defeated. There was little to no defense for the overwhelming justice delivered by the Israeli military, culminating with the help of the United States destroying the nuclear sites and halting the uranium enrichment program. That brings us here today. Why have a briefing on a problem that's been solved, right? Iran's no longer a threat? Well, unfortunately, that's the thinking of many Western societies. They only choose to see what makes them comfortable. They would like to classify this as a Middle Eastern problem, letting other countries deal with the problem as long as their quality of life is not impacted. Sadly, the problem extends far past the geographic borders of the country of Iran. Today, our guests will talk about the Iranian threat. Yes, I know Iran showed little military prowess, a paper tiger that folded easily after decades of the vitriol vowing to wipe Israel off the map. But Iran's threat proficiencies are unique in that their asymmetric creativity exceeds their military capabilities. What they may lack in direct military deployability, they make up for in cyber warfare and proxy terror support. Thus, the reason for today's briefing. Now, let me introduce you to our panel guest. Dr. Eyal Pinko. He served in the Israeli Navy and National Intelligence Agency for almost 30 years. Over that time, he served as an intelligence unit commander and finished his military career as the head of an intelligence operations division at the National Intelligence Agency at the rank of Rear Admiral. After retiring in 2017, Dr. Pinko was a senior consultant for 3 years at the Israeli National Cyber Directorate, where he developed cybersecurity methodologies, wargaming scenarios, threat and risk assessments, and impact analysis for businesses and government agencies. Dr. Pinko has a PhD in defense and security studies, 3 master's degrees in international relationships, public management, and organizational development, and bachelor's degree in electronics engineering. He has written over 500 articles in the leading security and defense journals, published a book on Iranian naval asymmetric warfare, and has served as the keynote speaker at dozens of global conferences. Dr. Pinko is regularly interviewed on several notable channels around the world. Since 2023, he has been the CEO of Cyfort, an Israeli-Bulgarian company for cybersecurity solutions and services, including the implementation and integration of AI solutions. Amotz Brandes is a seasoned security professional with a career spanning the military, government, and corporate sectors. He began his service in a reconnaissance unit of the Israeli Defense Forces, operating primarily in Lebanon in counter-Hezbollah operations. Following his military service, Amotz held security roles at the Israeli consulate in Los Angeles and with Al Al Israeli Airlines. Since 2002, Amotz has been with the Chameleon Group, where he now serves as the CEO. Under his leadership, Chameleon has delivered specialized security consulting, training, and intelligence services to clients worldwide, including the U.S. Departments of Defense, Homeland Security, and Department of Justice. He has led projects for government agencies across Europe, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and Singapore, as well as for Fortune 50 corporations, central banks, and international institutions. His work centers on risk, threat, and vulnerability assessments, with particular focus on countering insider threats and preventing terrorism. Amotz holds a bachelor's degree in international development studies from UCLA. So in preparation for today's briefing, Dr. Pinko, and welcome this morning, I went on YouTube and looked at some of your previous interviews. I read some of your research papers, and frankly, I was overwhelmed at the amount of information that was presented there and your knowledge into this topic. So I was then tasked with trying to come up with a group of questions that we can encapsulate in an hour-long webinar that would give us some good insight into this threat. Obviously, we're not going to be able to cover the entirety of what this consists of, but we wanted to put forth a picture for our audience that would best enlighten them on this not being an Israeli issue. And I think a lot of Western thinking oftentimes delegates this to it's a problem over there. It's a problem that somebody else is going to deal with. As long as it doesn't impact my quality of life here, I'm not real interested with it. So with that being said, as I mentioned in the intro, we first put this together during the 12-day war, whenever it was first very fluid, very dynamic, and a lot of changes were going on. We've since seen it turn into more of a static situation where that dynamic war going on over there, the kinetic war, is no longer active. However, that obviously doesn't diminish that Iran still being a threat to both Israel and to the Western nations. Can you give us an assessment on a few things? One, on Iran's current nuclear situation, their nuclear program. There's been talk back and forth that it was set back very minor, just a few months, all the way up to several years that they've been set back. The current Iranian regime, its ability to maintain power, how have they kept a grasp on their power through all of these dynamic moments that have happened? Are they still seen as the authoritarian regime that is in control, or have they been diminished in the eyes of their populace to the degree that they're no longer feared or revered as it may be?
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for your kind words and this warm introduction, and for your question. Thank you for being here. I would like maybe to start over with one of the things you said regarding the peace and quiet now in Europe and in the US. You know, in the last 10 to 15 years, the US government, the UK government, the EU Commission declared as China as the largest threat to national security since the Second World War. And I'm starting with China because we need to understand, we are speaking about Iran. We need to understand that China and Iran, it's a one entity. We call it also in the intelligence services, we call it the evil axis, which in the US it's being called CERN, which is China, India, Russia, and North Korea, and also Iran. And this axis is working together. We see the involvement of Iran in the Ukrainian war. Only last year, Iran sent 9,000 Shaheds drones to Russia in order to help Russia with the war. So when we speak about the nuclear program, what is happening in Iran, we need to understand that Iran is not alone in this campaign. And after the Israeli attack and the American attack that came after that, we saw that in the supply chain of the nuclear capabilities of Iran, the Iranian nuclear capabilities were severely damaged. It was damaged that the main nuclear facilities were hit. Fordo, Natanz, and another, around 7 or 8 of them. It's a supply chain of 14 different sites. And this is not including the missile bases and warehouses. So we see there is a huge hit in the Iranian capabilities and the Iranian military as well. With there was a huge Mossad operation before the aerial attack, that Mossad operatives, boots on the ground, took out all the anti-aircraft batteries in the border between Iraq and Iran, letting the Israeli Air Force to go inside. So Iran was damaged severely. And you asked about how long it will take them. It really depends. If Iran will continue and try to take these capabilities by their own, it will take them years. The Iranian nuclear plant was back at least 5 years, went out of order. But I started with China, and we see that China went inside the picture now again, and now the Iranian are going to buy aircraft, the J-10 aircraft from China in order to bring back its aerial defense capabilities. And probably what we will see now, that Iran is referring China will help Iran to restore the anti-aerial batteries and also restore the nuclear program again. More than that, maybe it will be a little bit delicate way to say, but Pakistan is part of that. During the Israeli attacks, Pakistan immediately offered 750 nuclear missile, ballistic missile, to give to Iran in order to assist it. And we will see that now Pakistan will be also part of the reorganization of the Iranian military capabilities and nuclear program as well. So the main question, just as a summary, it will very much depend on now how much China will give aid over there, and Pakistan and North Korea as well. And the recovery time can be from few months to a few years, and it really depends on the aid of this evil axis.
Excellent, thank you. So it's interesting to hear this axis of evil that you talked about. Bush 43, our United States president, he had brought forth that axis of evil premise, shortly after 9/11, talking about how the combined efforts of those countries, it's no longer just a singular regime that needs to be worried about. There's a lot of contributory factors. We have the embargo in place supposedly to help isolate Iran, but obviously if you have major countries with the Russia and China connection, it kind of defeats that embargo premise whenever they're freely providing armaments and materials to help rebuild those infrastructures.
Absolutely.
So regarding the regime itself, obviously, since the Islamic Revolution and the government has morphed into what it is today, what are the strengths and weaknesses of the opposition in Iran? So, we hear a lot about, they've blocked the internet, they limit social media, they, have taken away a lot of the opportunities for an upheaval, an uprising. So regarding a regime change, I know that there's the philosophy of the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know, a power vacuum that might be created in the absence of the current regime. What are the strengths and weaknesses of the populace there? If the civilians were to trigger a regime change or a military coup, is that something that's possible, or is this something that we're just going to have to make the best of a bad situation and continue to deal with the government that's in place now?
Yeah, Iran, it's a nation which is being built from many nations. It's not one nation, and the ruling party over there, the Shah, and not the Shah, the Islamic Republic Party, is being it's mainly by Shia Muslims. So the other nations that are part of Iran, they don't like the Iranian regime, but they are very weak. They're very, very weak. The Iranian regime is operating Revolutionary Guard. Part of that is the Basij force. This is 1 million policemen, 1 million policemen, very cruel, with weapons and motorcycles that are going everywhere, and they can eliminate the people. And we see that in the few years when there were start riots in order to go against the regime, the Basij came immediately, and just everybody was just spread all over and just disappeared. So they don't care about human lives. If the people are trying to revoke or go against the regime, they go immediately into prisons, a life sentence. They kill them in the streets. So the opposition now is very, very weak, and I don't see in the next, let's say, at least few months until the regime will get strengthened again. I don't see any kind of scenario that those guys try to go against the government again.
Okay, and you had mentioned, the nuclear program had been set back, and we're talking about Iran proper, meaning the country itself, and some of the isolationist issues that they're dealing with, but extend it beyond the borders of Iran. Can you talk to us about what the strengths and weaknesses or abilities are of their proxies? So proxies, by many accounts, are probably a more predominant threat stemming from Iran than their traditional military itself might be. Proxies being, Hezbollah, the Houthis, being a state sponsor of terrorism. Obviously, Iran, they have the ability to employ these shadow groups to further their evil intents beyond their borders. Can you talk to us about those groups right now and the strengths? We know the Hezbollah setback that had happened many months ago with the pager accident that had occurred, and how that may have transformed their structure. Are they still a viable group? Where do we stand right now with these proxy groups?
Yeah, it's nice. The term accident is very nice. I like it very much. Yeah, I will say I will say two things about the proxies maybe. First, there is the short range proxies, which are in the Middle East, and the second layer, the second group, are in South America. And maybe I will start from there. I will go back to the Middle East. We need to remember that Hezbollah and Iran are the largest drug suppliers from South America. They sit in Colombia, in Mexico. They are moving drugs through Panama, Venezuela, and other countries to the US, to Canada. They even supply drugs through the Atlantic to Spain, to Portugal, and from there to Europe. So Iran and Hezbollah, it's being estimated by some European institutes that they are earning around $1 billion per year only by drug movement from the south part of America, the southern countries. This enables them to influence what is happening in the Central and the North America. They are also interfering in the American way of life, including via cyber attacks, including via election processes, manipulation, and more and more. So they live over there. They're very strong. Even the issue of Aruba, Panama, there is large presence of Hezbollah and Iran. This is in the long range from Iran. In the shorter range, which I mean in the Middle East, Israel. Maybe I will start. I will go back. Sorry. One of the Iranian strategies is to have non-contact warfare, which means they don't want to send their troops in order to fight. They prefer that someone else will fight for them. And in order to use it as in multi-hands or multi-direction against Israel, and we must understand that Iran see Israel as the door to the West. If Iran wants to conquer the West, Europe, UK, the US, they see this is their ideology. They need to go through Israel. So in order to take Israel out, they are using the proxies, non-contact warfare. They don't want to fight. They're sending someone else to fight. And during the last almost 2 years since October 7, Israel managed to dismantle most of these organizations. Hezbollah in Lebanon, starting with the beepers, the pagers operation, the backbone of Hezbollah was collapsed. After that, Israeli mainly Air Force attack in the north in Beirut and in the south by infantry and artillery took out most of the Hezbollah arsenal. And by the way, we see already some of the arsenal already start moving inside Lebanon via Syria, Iraq, by the Iranians. So Hezbollah, is still on his knees, is very weak, and he start now being do the rearmament process with the Iranian. The 130 Shia militia in Iraq are being controlled very nicely by the Iraqi military, but still everything is boiling over there in Iraq. The Syrian regime, Bashar al-Assad regime, in 10 days, it was dismantled, it was conquered by ISIS and Jabhat al-Nusra and other Sunni terror organization. And now, as you know, there is a new government took out. This was a very important proxy of Iran because most of the weapons to Hamas, to Hezbollah, went also through Syria as well. In Israel, Hamas in the Gaza Strip controlled the Gaza Strip for 17 years with other terror organization inside the Gaza, which was nurturing by Iran. Also got very weak. Israel managed to take out most of the, let's say around 70% of its command and control structure. And now Hamas is pretty much divided into 5 families, Hamulas, as they call it in Arabic. It's being divided into 5 and they are fighting with each other. This is the reason that Israel has a lot of problems how to negotiate about the kidnaps that they took on October 7th. In the south part, the Yemen Houthis, and the Yemen Houthis are, you know, in the Israeli media, or probably in other medias, once a day, the Houthis are firing 1 ballistic missiles. 99.9% of them are being intercepted by the 5th or the 6th Navy, the American Navy, most of it by the Israeli military, Air Force and Navy. But this is, you know, this shows a lot of booms and flames, and everybody likes it. But the real issue with the Houthis are not the ballistic missiles, are not the drones. The real issue with the Houthis that they are imposing a maritime blockade on the Red Sea, and it's affecting severely Egypt. Around 60% of the Egyptian government incomes that came from the Suez Canal were dropped down because of the Houthis. It's infecting the Saudi Arabia with this maritime blockade. And at the end of the day, most of the European commerce are also being affected by that financially, because the ships, the vessels that are coming from China and from Asia are going through the Horn of Africa and not going through the Middle East, the Mediterranean Sea. It means that each ship, the cost of each ship is around $1 million more, because it's around 10, 12 days more at sea, around $70,000 to $80,000 per ship. So this is affecting also the world economy. And while the US, the British Air Force, the Israeli Air Force, the Israeli Navy were attacking the Houthis again and again and again, there still operates. And this is from the Iranian side. This is a hope. This is the symbolized hope and showing they are winning the battle. And they're really affecting the world economy and also the European economy, not, you know, in particular. So most of the Iranian proxies were diminished, the power that was diminished, less capabilities. They are now in a forced build-up process, while the Houthis, which were hit here and there, they are now projecting Iranian's power, Iranian force in the Middle East, and this problem also affecting everyone over the globe.
So what's Iran's ultimate objective? I mean, is the regime both in the Middle East and worldwide, are they hoping to just be an isolationist nation that just stays to themselves with Israel eradicated off the map? Are they hoping to be an economic power? Are they hoping to be a world player when it comes to political issues that are coming up? What is Iran hoping to accomplish? Best case scenario for them, what would the world look like for Iran?
Yeah, we need first to remember that there are 94 million people around, plus minus. This is the 23rd largest economy in the world. Iran is a huge player in the oil and the gas fields. This is large economy, and you know, from one side they want prosperity, they want to enlarge their incomes. But the main activity, the main strategy, the main vision of Iran is to be a Shia state from the river to the sea, which means from the Mediterranean Sea to Iran. They want to control the whole region, the whole Middle East. And there are some countries that are not going well with this vision: Jordan, Egypt, and Israel as well. So the Iranian, the Shia Iranian is, the enemy, the competitor is not only Israel, it's also the Sunni countries, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Israel in the middle. The Jewish country is also part of the enemies that they see. In the last 2 years, the Jordanian king is fighting a lot activity, drugs activities, and criminal activities from the inside that are being managed and manipulated by Iran. And it's being, used by the Syrian regime before it collapsed with Hezbollah, and by bringing chaos, drugs, prostitutes, illegal weapons, they are trying to collapse the regime from the inside, the Jordanian regime. And of course, with a lot of population of Palestinians that came from Gaza, and they are trying also to diminish or to dismantle the Jordanian regime from the inside. So the Iranian vision is to take control as the Persian kingdom from long time ago, and to get control from the river to the sea of everything that is over there.
There's a historical perspective there that is very important. The last point of Iran being looked at, or the Iranian regime looking at it as the old Persian empire. So when you look at the Middle East, not just Iran, you always have to look at it through historical lenses, religious lenses as well. So there are a few perspectives here with regards to how the Iranian regime looks at itself both as representing Persia, the old Persia, and also representing Shia Islam that has been in a constant fight, a very bloody fight with Sunni Islam. So all of that is very much, and it's a negotiation that is done internally. In that, what DNA do we subscribe to, the Persian one or the Shia Muslim one? So and they use it interchangeably when they speak, both internally to their own people and externally to the Arab world around them and to the world in general.
They invented the chess,
Right.
so they are playing chess with everyone.
Yeah, and I would want to say just one to some of the other questions that Sean you raised. The attack by Israel and then finally with the United States. There are a few things here. First of all, it's the technical capacity that Iran lost with regards to its nuclear, but there's also a strategic vulnerability that they are now facing, which both Israel and the United States crossed a certain Rubicon in terms of there was always, it seems to have been always a strategy by Iran to say Israel is afraid to attack us, or the United States won't attack us. Why? Because we're a recognized nation and whatnot. That is, I think, now a factor that goes into their decision making, whether with regards to the nuclear program that they have, but also to any kind of other attack that they might launch against the West, that there might be retaliation where maybe they thought, well, Israel either is too weak or won't do it or afraid to do it. It'll have implications internally, et cetera, the same way they looked at the United States. I think that because of that, I don't think that they will stop because the motive is there, but that non-contact war that they are engaged will actually, they'll try to do more of this in order to create plausible deniability. The ability, so maybe, for instance, attacking Westerners or Americans or Europeans outside of their country. Okay, I mentioned the Caribbean, other places where it's still an American, European, Western target, but it's not on U.S. or European soil, and therefore or not done directly by Iranians, done by proxies that you can. if you go back, you could see that also. You could put into that also cyber attacks, because cyber attacks allow you to have a certain level of anonymity. But I think that we will see more of that, just because any kind of direct attack now, they would rethink whether or not Israel, the United States, or other nations would attack them, because that precedent has been achieved.
Yeah, no, those are
I
excellent
would like
points.
Sean,
Go ahead, Dr.
just
Pinko.
a word on that. As Amotz said, we see the activity of Force 400, which is the commando force of Iran operating in the US, in Europe as well. And they are collaborating with the new IRA, with the Red Brigades in Italy, with the FRAC, and with other terror organizations. So they are all acting together in order to create confusion and to bring chaos to the US, to the North, and US, Canada, mainly to the North, the Central European countries. So this is what they do. As you know, the idea behind it is a Russian, very old Russian idea, and they are implementing that in the Russian spirit, which saying that if you want to break countries, you need to bring chaos into the countries. How to bring chaos? Bring drugs, bring weapons, bring criminal activities by civilians that they are not connected directly. I'm saying that cynically, but this is the way they do. They're not connecting directly to the Russian, Iranian, Chinese governments, and including, by the way, also cyber attacks. And this is what we see a lot in the last decade.
Excellent points. I find it ironic, the religious hierarchy of Iran having the proclivity of being drug runners and gun dealers and engaging in acts of prostitution, throughout the areas that they're trying to diminish quality of life issues and integration into Western societies, which brings me to my next question. So I'll speak on behalf of Westerners who we largely get our information about Iran and terrorism from mainstream news outlets, who have for the most part, abandoned any type of broadcast at this point. It no longer has the sexy taglines. It no longer has the appeal of being a dynamic, kinetic engagement. It's kind of fallen off the radar for the most part. So with that being said, those of us in the intel community, whether it's civilian or government, we've received the briefings about small terror cells in Middle America, or the integration of these groups or individuals into local level government positions, city councils and mayors, who are now kind of converting the populace to maybe it's a Sharia type environment, or some sort of non-affiliation with the way of life to whatever country they've come to, but actually trying to transform those around them as more of an invasion as opposed to an assimilation. So with the mindset, and Amotz, I'll direct this at you first. What are some of the shortcomings of the mindset of, we'll just call it the West, when there's clearly a lack of understanding of the Iranian threat? I mentioned earlier, it's happening over there. It's somebody else's problem. How can we in Western countries, whether it's America, Europe, any of the countries that might be impacted, NATO countries that are involved here, better understand the Iranian threat as it pertains to them and our area of responsibility, and not just see it as somebody else's problem to deal with?
I mean, this is for any intelligence professional. The first thing that you want to do is to see the issues and threats through the other side's cultural perspective, or it could be a religious perspective, or historical one. So really, one of the things that is lacking in the West is a very deep and wide understanding of how they see themselves, in Iran, in the Middle East, how they see the role. We talked a little bit about Persia versus Shia Islam, even to look at the differences between Sunni Islam and Sunni Islam and Shia Islam, and many other ethnic, linguistic, cultural backgrounds, how they see and align themselves with which powers. In order to be able to see the news that is being broadcast, the information, you got to put in a lens that is not your lens, not your Western lens, but the lens of how they see it. I mean, even things like things like what's happening now, and Dr. Pinko just mentioned it briefly. What's happening in Syria right now? There's now the current regime in Syria is attacking a Druze population. That is, Druze are people that came out of Islam and therefore are seen as people that don't have the right to exist, actually, as opposed to, by the way, Jews and Christians. I won't go deep into this because all of that is very important to see. Why are they attacking this minority in Syria? Well, there's a religious element there, and why are they attacking us? I mean, all of those things need to be looked at in terms of how they perceive themselves in the world. And before you get the information from news outlets or wherever it comes from, you need to be able to analyze it through those lenses.
Right. So at Chameleon, we utilize what's known as the Israeli model of threat assessment. We employ a security model, through the eyes of the adversary. And I think what you bring up is a valid and important point, that you can no longer look at it through the eyes of Western justice or very linear black and white laws. This is what we do. This is the consequence. There has to be some deviation from the normal mindset that if you no longer look at it through the eyes of the adversary, you're really limited the scope of how you can deal with some of these problems. When Dr. Pinko, you were talking about earlier about utilizing the proxy groups and the abilities and limitations. What are the methods of operation that the Iranian regime can use for some of these objectives? So you touched on it earlier, and I would like for you to expand, if you would. There's cyber capabilities, there's cyber warfare. Is it a organized government level group? Are they sponsoring lower level independent hacker type groups? Are they employing North Korean, the countries that we think of that generally have the cyber capabilities? Is this a combined joint effort with this axis of evil group, or is Iran simply a standalone country that has these cyber abilities against their adversaries?
Yeah, it's important. I think it's important issue. In the Little Prince, it was said that the important things are unseen, and in this case, it's the same thing. You cannot speak about the Chinese threat without combining that with the Russian and the Iranian. They're all together. The Syrian, the Chinese, Iranian, Russian, and North Korean, they are one group. They are one axis. And something like 2 years ago, a re-signing of strategic agreement was signed between Iran and China. In this agreement, China opened in Tehran and in other places in Iran, opened central intelligence centers. They are working over there together to collect information about Israeli, about the American Navy, about other American allies. And they are doing that together. In these centers, they are also performing together cyber attacks against the West. So they are using same methods, same tools. They are sharing zero tools, that, as we call them, 0 days. So everything is being shared, and there is a target basket, as we call it in the intelligence, that they are attacking together. It goes to the US, it goes to Europe, to all European countries. And another example for showing these amazing ties between China and Iran is I can speak, for example, about the issue that the yuan, the Chinese cryptocurrency, is being mined in Tehran. In Tehran, before the war, before the last operation, half of the day Tehran was in dark because most of the power went into the mining process for the crypto yuan for China. So they are sharing same resources, same cyber attacks. You cannot address the Chinese threat without understanding that this is a combined effort with the main three actors of Russia, China, and Iran.
Excellent, thank you. So we've talked about their diminished capabilities, but still obviously posing a threat. Are there any realistic, we'll call them red lines, that Iran could create or cross at this point that would incite another military action by Israel or the United States? Are they in a position to make any meaningful retaliatory actions against Israel or the West? Or are they largely, it might not be the proper terminology, but a nuisance group at this point? I mean, do they have any meaningful ability to push the conflict to reignite at this point?
Let's understand that 3 weeks ago, Iran stand in a position which their aerial defense system were shut down, were totally took out. They left with around 800 ballistic missiles out of 2,000. Air Force that was the old F-14, F-4 aircraft that they took from the US during the beginning of the 70s in the Shah, while the Shah was in power. And this military was almost shut down. And what we see in the last 3 weeks, that the Iranian military, and especially the Revolution Guard, start to gain power from the beginning, bring aerial defense systems from China, aircraft from China. And what I believe, they will not wait for another war to come, or for building the nuclear capabilities from scratch in the next 5 years. I do believe that with the help of Pakistan, North Korea, and China, they will rebuild their nuclear capabilities again in a very fast way. In a very, very fast way, I mean less than a year from now. So they will not stop. And I think that while I accept, especially now after they understood that the Trump administration is unpredictable from their perspective, I'm speaking from the Iranian perspective only, not from political issues. From their perspective, Trump cannot be forecast. And as they didn't believe that Israel will attack, and especially they didn't believe that Trump, the US will attack, they understand they cannot play in this field now because of their weakening capabilities. So in the next year, they will build up their capabilities while promising things to the US, to the West, about taking out the nuclear, not any kind of military capabilities, but in the darkness, below the radar, they will reinforce. They will bring capabilities from China, from North Korea and Pakistan, to rebuild the military, and especially to gain nuclear military capabilities. And I think that this year is crucial for the Iranian regime to stay as it is, to regain its force, control the people over there much stronger, that it will not fall, and show power towards the West, that in any kind of negotiation that it's already started, they will win the situation.
And I will add to it that one of the things that Iranians are known for throughout the years, if we study their MOs, is having done very thorough surveillance and preparation for target building, just like any, a lot of nations do that, but from a terrorist perspective. So if you look and you analyze attacks that they've done in the past, like the one in Argentina and in the 90s and others, they've collected a lot of information, done surveillance using their proxies or their own agents, but in a relatively safe manner, collecting those targets in order to then utilize them when they need it. And so the ability to go from operation quickly because they need to react to something is then available to them because they've done the preliminary work. So maybe now is a good time for them to do all of this, waiting maybe for the Trump era to to be over as far as they're concerned, and then have more predictability with regards to the response of the West. But yeah, they're in build-up mode, not just militarily, but also in terms of potential targeting, whether it's cyber or actual terrorism.
I would like to add on that. This is what the Revolution Guard is doing with maintaining information on gathering information about the infrastructure in order to create future operations. But one of the strengths of the Iranian regarding that, they have a huge network globally in Africa, in Europe, in the US, in South America, also in the Middle East for money laundering. And they are doing a lot of money laundering activities with straw companies, with crypto accounts. So this is their strength, that they can hide the money and they can move money very easily all over the globe. With this, they can sponsor all the activities that Amotz just said. And it's important to understand it. They also have a huge center in the UAE for that. So this is their strength and ability now to revive themselves from the beginning.
We, as we're coming up towards the end here, we've opened up the floor for some questions from the audience. We've got a couple really good ones here I want to give to you guys. Question one, the retaliation attack on America's airbase, it seems soft. Is this out of fear of America's strength? It seems unlikely that they're going to forget about the attack on their nuclear facility. Is that considered a one and done, or was that just kind of to save face on their end to say, yeah, we did something about it, but they really don't have any intentions on going any further?
From my perspective, we need to understand, I think Amotz said that before, about the understanding the culture. And the Persian culture is a very honorable one. They cannot go into a loose face situation. So this attack was very well coordinated. They said we are going to attack in a very specific amount of missiles. They gave the American troops time to evacuate it in order that nothing will be over there, not to escalate the situation. And then they got the retaliation. We fired on an American base. We struck American base. We are okay with that. And this one for the internal use of showing that they are successful winning the game, this is what they managed to do. There will be no other attack. They don't want any kind of escalation with the US military. They understand very well they cannot go through that. So this was the retaliation, and it's set. We are continuing on the way.
Yeah. And they did a very similar attack, or sort of a soft attack after the elimination of Soleimani by the United States. They did a very similar, but we have to remember, I mean, and I think, again, from a historical context, if you look at the Iran operation in the 1980s, they looked at the United States as weaker. Remember the hostage crisis during the Carter regime, the failed attempt to rescue the hostages. All of that showed to them that the United States is weak. And then another thing, even during the Reagan administration, the attack on the Marine barracks in Beirut, they said, oh, one suicide bomber took America out of the Middle East. 273 Marines, I believe, were killed in that attack with one suicide bomber. And big America left the United States, Lebanon, from a single attack, which showed to them, wow, this works. So they're very strategic in how they're utilizing their power capabilities and attacks. And I think the attack after, or their retaliation, was just we did this honorably. Now it's also something that they could use now with their own people, because they are an autocratic regime. So they need to say, look, we now attacked the big America or Israel or whatnot, and we retaliated. But we need to really be careful with just dismissing it. Oh, they won't attack. They will, and they will do it strongly and effectively, as they have proven in the past. Where, you know, I mentioned Beirut, the Marine barracks, which was a very important, you know, from a strategic point in understanding terrorism, but also Lockerbie, which they were behind in the 1980s, which really influenced the aviation and international travel. And the Iranian and the Libyans at the time were behind it. So there's a lot to learn from the past here as well.
I think we've got time for one more question from the audience. This is interesting. How do other Arab governments see Iran? So there's the face that you put on for the news cameras. There's the face that you have to publicly support. But behind the scenes, are they supportive of Iran? Are they supportive of what they project? Are they fearful of them? Are they against them, but just afraid to come out and say as much? It seems that any substantive attack by Iran would ultimately need support from other Arab states. I know we talked about the evil axis that would likely join in to help them, but specifically as it relates to the Arab states around them, is there a consensus? I know we talked about the Saudis, the Egyptians, Jordan being kind of strongly opposed, but some of the more subtle commentary from the other Arab states around them.
You see, if we will try to analyze what is really happening in the world, we'll see that we are during an era of multi-vectors, multi-dimension wars are being all over. You can see the war between the Russian, Chinese, Iranian axis against the West, the US, NATO, Israel, part of that. We can see there is a huge fight inside the Sunni countries who will take control of the Sunni world. And you see that, I would say, the gentle fight between Qatar and Turkey, especially Erdogan, which wants to take over the Muslim brotherhoods, which are also really powerful in the US as well. And we see another dimension, which is the fight, a huge fight, a real fight between the Shia and the Sunni. And we see that the Sunni countries, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, they are horrifying by Iran. And we see that they are rebuilding themselves from 2007 in a huge pace. Egypt became the 6th largest military in the world, just understanding that they need to take care of the Shia countries being led by Iran. So, you know, when you speak about the Arab world, the Arab countries, we need to understand there is unified efforts by the Sunni countries against the Shia countries, which is, by the way, also not only Iran, but also by the proxy that we spoke. And the Jordanian, for example, as we said, the king is horrified. The king is under a huge risk over there, huge, because of the internal currents that are going all over because of Iran. And I think that the Arab countries and the Middle East is, under a severe earthquake in the last few years, and still on moving because of these fights between the Sunni, inside the Sunni, and between the Sunni and the Shia countries.
And I would just add to it that when you again look at the perspective of the Arab world, you need to really understand not just the Saudi Iranian relationship, but really look at how the Saudi regime handles its own threat internally, whether it's from Muslim Brotherhood, whether it's from Shia minorities within Saudi Arabia and things like that. And I'm just giving one example, which is Saudi Arabia, but that applies to Egypt and Jordan and Syria and everybody else.
Right. Well, in the spirit of trying to keep this, I know we started at about 05 after the hour there. Let's go ahead and get some closing statements from both of you. So today we presented a very short snapshot of what is typically a multi-day conference for both of you. I know both of you speak to large groups and you provide information that is given in a much longer format. And we've tried to put a lot of information in a very short period of time here. So if you could just summarize for us what participants in today's briefing should try to take away from this session. Dr. Pinko, we'll start with you.
Yeah, you know, when the Chinese trying to curse you, they tell you, "I wish you to have an interesting life." And I think that we are in a very interesting period of time. We see the world is being changed. Some leaders says it's a new world order, and I do believe that this is what we are facing. We face a multidimensional fight, war between multi-level forces over there. We need to understand that most of it is being covered by religious cover story, as we call in the intelligence, but it's a race for who will control the minerals in the world: lithium, titanium, uranium, and of course oil, gas, and energy sources. And we see this kind of fights also in Africa. We didn't speak about Africa, but Africa is a large part of that. And we see the race, the competition between China, the Belt and Road Initiative, with really took control over the globe economically below the radar, while the US is trying to bring another or different commerce way via the Middle East to Europe, with the aid of Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Oman, Israel, Egypt, and those countries. And I think that when we speak about, we wanted to speak today about risk and threats. So taking all of that as an integrated part to our risk and threats to the West, to the European countries, to NATO countries, and to the US or North America at all, we need to understand that the evil axis, China, Iran, Russia, North Korea, they are not playing with the same culture, the same methods as the West does. It starts with influence campaign, psychological warfare, or propaganda in the previous name, with maybe a little bit not politically correct, but huge propaganda. We just discovered in the last year there is a huge cyber network being made by the Russian in order to influence not only the public opinion and not only the election, but also to change AI mechanism as ChatGPT and all, to set a different tone. So it's a cyber warfare that from that they are achieving political, economical, military gains. It's also a war that being conducted via the streets, via illegal arms trade, drugs, and other illegal activities, as a strategy, as the vision to understand that you can take down Europe, you can then take down America by the instability, the inside instability. And it's well written, by the way, by Iranian, Chinese, Russian strategists. It's not, they write it, they speak about it, it's not a secret. And they do that very well. So we need to understand that this war that sometimes looks, very far away, 2,000 kilometers from Israel, in Iran, or in the Middle East, the Middle East, it's only the gate for the West. And the war is already on the streets in the West, as I said before, with criminal activities that you cannot really every time connect it to, national entities. And as I said, I do believe that we are in a very interesting era, and the new face of what will be in our cultures is being now written in these days. And I'm sure that we are going to have a very interesting year in front of us. Thank you very much for the time. Thank you very much for inviting me here.
Thank you, Dr. Pinko. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Amotz, a lot was said in a short period of time here. Where can people find out more information about this topic, or what information do you have to leave the audience with?
I think I agree with the closing statement. Just in general, to look at, how do we bring this type of information from the macro to the micro to the, whether you work for a company, organization, not necessarily someone who deals with the entire world, but how does it affect me? Well, you need to study more, educate yourself more about the issues and about the MOs, whether they're cyber or physical. Educate yourself how intelligence should be analyzed through different perspectives, or information should be analyzed. The best way to find more information vis-a-vis Chameleon is through our calendar of event on our website. Attend our seminars. We have a seminar coming up in London in November, and keep engaging us with questions, with the webinars like this. Our motto is improving security through intelligence, and that's exactly what we're doing here today.
Thank you, Amotz. Yes, and your security forum will be in London on November 11th and 12th of this year. Also like to direct the audience to Chameleon's LinkedIn page for information on more seminars, webinars. And then just to close on my behalf, we like the idea of this format. We don't know if the audience will feel the same. But if you do, and you have ideas for future webinars, topic that you might be interested in, something that's a matter that's pending in the world, something that might be specific to your industry, something that is a security-related best practices that you would like us to research, bring panelists on, and talk about further, we're happy to explore those ideas. I don't know if it would be on a quarterly basis or how exactly this forum will take place going forward, but your feedback is certainly important. Contact information for our panel members can be found on the panel page. Reach out with any questions that you might not have asked during the webinar. And certainly I'd be happy to answer any questions or talk to anybody if you had any questions or concerns from me. But on behalf of our panelists, on behalf of Chameleon Group, we thank you for your time. We know it's a work day for many people, or if you're in the EU, it might be bedtime, but either way, we appreciate you taking the time. An hour is an hour. We'll take whatever we can get from a security standpoint. Hopefully you're leaving here with more information than you had when you started. And again, as Amotz said, it's about educating yourself. Rarely does the adversary come to you. Sometimes you have to go out and seek the threat, meaning try to find out more about who the adversary is and what you can do to harden your own area of responsibility. So on behalf of Chameleon, thank you all for your time and have a wonderful weekend.